So Hare Krishna. Good to see everyone again. So we'll speak about Bishmadev. But before we start, I'd like you to think about whether it's ever happened to you in life that you tried really, really hard to please someone, to make someone's life easier, but they misunderstood it and they got upset with you. Maybe you try to make their life easier, you relieve them of some burden or some service. You said, oh, I'll do it instead of you. And they said, am I not doing it well enough? Are you upset with me? So I'm sure we all had this experience, maybe more than once. So you can imagine Bishmadev, who's one of the greatest devotees of the Lord. He's one of the Mahajans, one of the 12 authorities on religious life. And still so many people misunderstand him. So many people say he fought on the side of Duryodhana, he fought against Krishna, he fought against the Pandavas, he fought against Krishna's great devotees. So there's something not right with him. So this is just to help us relate to Bishmadev's life, Bishmadev's situation. And Bishmadev's prayers, before we go into the prayers, but his prayers are the second set of prayers in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the basis of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, and first there are prayers of Kunti Devi, the second set is prayers of Bishmadev, so he's a very, very special person. And we are very fortunate to have a quick glance into his mind. Sometimes, great devotees come, Jayadvaita Maharaj comes here, or some great devotee comes, and I'm sure many of us wonder what goes on in their mind, what goes on in their heart. So we are very fortunate in the Bhagavatam, we get a little glimpse into what goes on in their mind or what goes on in their heart when we read their prayers. So first of all, just to kind of clarify that even though Bishmadev fought on the side of Duryodhana, there are deep lessons for us there. So rather than criticizing him or thinking badly of him, we can think that this was his service, or this was one of his services to teach us that no matter how great you are, no matter how great warrior, fighter you are, you can't win against Krishna. So no matter what you do, you can't win against Krishna. You can't go against Krishna's will. And then on an even deeper level, I don't think Bishmadev needs an introduction to anyone, right? We all kind of know who. Can anyone who doesn't know who Bishmadev is, put your hand up? Okay, so we all know who Bishmadev is. So if you think about Bishmadev in the battle of Kurukshetra and Arjuna in the battle of Kurukshetra. So Krishna was on the chariot of Arjuna. So what did Arjuna see as he was fighting in terms of Krishna? What part of Krishna did he see? His back. Yeah, so Arjuna saw Krishna's back. And what did Bishmadev see? Jai Shishi Gaurnitai ki Jai. So just like we're very fortunate to see Gaurnitai from the front, and in the same way, Bishmadev also saw Krishna from the front. So in that sense, Bishmadev is even more fortunate than Arjuna, because he could see this really dear form. So for many of us, Krishna we like Radha Madhava playing his flute, and he's decorated with flowers, and he's very peaceful and wonderful and playful. But for Bishmadev, his favorite form is when Krishna is very angry and he's pierced by some arrows and he's bleeding and his hair and his body is covered with dust and sweat. So just like a warrior. So that's the favorite form of Bhishma. So So this is what he could see in the battle on the battlefield of battlefield of Kurukshetra. And then another important thing relating to Bishmadev is that Krishna broke his own vow to protect the vow of Bhishma. So he must be a very important person. Before the battle, Krishna said, Duryodhana, you can have my army. I will be on the side of Arjuna, but I won't take up any weapon. That's my promise. I won't take up any weapon. So that was Krishna's vow. Now, as the battle was going on, Duryodhana got more and more upset with Bhishma. He said, you are the greatest fighter in this whole 640 million, among all these 640 million people, and somehow you're not managing to kill the Pandavas. Maybe you're not fighting to your full capacity. And then Bishmadev, being a Kshatriya, being a great warrior, he doesn't like when his warrior skills are questioned. So he said, okay, tomorrow I fight so strongly that either I kill Arjuna or Krishna will have to take up a weapon. So Krishna was left in a bit of a dilemma. What do I do? Do I let my sweet, beloved devotee Arjuna die, or do I take up a weapon and break my own vow? So what do you think Krishna chose? Protect his devotee. Yeah, so that's one of the names of Krishna is Bhaktavatsala, the protector of his devotee, or one who is affectionate to his devotee. So for Krishna, it's a lot more important to protect us, to look after us, to reciprocate with us, than to keep his own vow. Prabhupada says, being a protector of his devotee is more important than being a worldly moralist. So usually it's not a good thing if we break our promise. But Krishna can do it to protect devotees. So to protect his one devotee and to protect the vow of another devotee, Bhishma, Krishna broke his own vow. And then at the last stage of his life, like Raghunath Bhatta Prabhu mentioned, Bishmadev gave a lecture on Dharma to Dharmaraj. So Yudhishthir Maharaj is a son of Yamaraj. He's sometimes called Dharmaraj. But Bhishmadev was so learned in Dharma that he could give a lecture to Dharmaraj on Dharma. And it wasn't just any lecture. You know, sometimes if we have a headache, or a bit tired, we don't feel like giving a class, or maybe we don't feel like giving a class at all. But Bhishmadev didn't just have a headache, or he wasn't just a bit tired, but he's been lying on a bed of arrows. He's been pierced by so many arrows, and he was basically dying. He had this benediction that he could leave his body at will, Ichhamrityu. He could leave his body whenever he wanted to. So he was giving this lecture on Dharma to Dharmaraj while on his deathbed, being pierced by these arrows. And the audience wasn't just some new congregation members who just, asking, what should I do if I fall asleep when I'm chanting? Or, just some very new people. But there was Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, great sages, and even Krishna himself was there. So giving class is hard enough. Imagine if Krishna and Vyasadeva and Narada Muni are all sitting in the audience. I get nervous just if anybody is sitting in the audience. So this was Bhishmadev giving his class on this deathbed. And there is a really beautiful parallel we can see, in the modern times. There's a picture of Srila Prabhupada on his deathbed in Vrindavan, surrounded by devotees. Jayadvaita Maharaj is there, a few other devotees, and he's translating Bhagavatam. So just like Bhishmadev, in his last moments of his life, he was still serving Krishna and giving teachings. In the same way, our own Srila Prabhupada, in the last moments of his life, on his deathbed, he's giving purpose the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I think the last chapter he was translating and commenting on is the 13th chapter in the 10th canto. So you can read those chapters, read those purports. They are really, really wonderful. Prabhupada's deepest ecstasies are there. So we can see this modern day Bishmadev in our own Srila Prabhupada. And then if anybody still has any doubts about Bhishma, how could he fight against Krishna, against the Pandavas, against devotees, then just think about his prayers. We'll go through the prayers. I don't know how far we will get, but Bhishmadev is praying to Krishna, please let my mind be focused on you. Please be there at the last moment of my life. So if we don't like someone, if somebody is an enemy, that's probably the last person we want there when we are leaving our body. But Bhishmadev is praying to Krishna, please be there as I'm leaving my body. And also if Krishna took Bhishmadev's arrows in an inimical spirit, then he wouldn't have come. So even if somebody just says something not so kind to us, if we help cook the feast, maybe roll the puris, and then somebody comes up to us and say, these puris were really bad. They were really chewy, and we would feel quite hurt. It wasn't just criticizing our puris, but Bhishmadev was shooting arrows at Krishna. But Krishna obviously didn't take it in the wrong way, because he knew that this is the way Bhishmadev is worshipping me. Some people are offering flowers, flower garlands, necklaces to worship Krishna. And then some very rare people offer arrows to worship Krishna. So this was the spirit in which Krishna took Bhishmadev's arrows. So I don't know is it possible to put up that? Okay. So now we'll look at the prayers one by one. It's about 10 verses. And they are in a slightly different tune from most of the Bhagavatam verses. And as it is, I'm not very good with singing. So I found a YouTube video that really nicely sings the prayers. And then for each verse, there are maybe 1 or 2 points that we can say. If you can go to maybe 11 seconds into it, and then we can meditate on Bhishmadev as we hear the verses. Okay. So this is the first one. Yeah, after each verse, if you can stop. So translation, let me now invest my thinking, feeling, and willing, which were for so long engaged in different subjects and occupational duties, in the all-powerful Lord Shri Krishna. He is always self-satisfied, but sometimes being the leader of the devotees, he enjoys transcendental pleasure by descending to the material world, although from him only the material world is created. So the prayer that we will see in each and every verse is Bhishmadev is praying, let me think about you, let me remember you, let me become attached to you, let me become attracted to you. So this is the prayer. Can be also our meditation towards Krishna. And in this particular prayer, Bhishmadev is saying, I've been thinking, feeling, and willing so many other things in my life. So I'm sure this is something we can all relate to. This is the Sunday program. We are thinking about Krishna. We meet devotees. But Monday morning, we have to go to work. Fortunately, this week there is no school. But most weeks we have to go to school. We got so many other things we need to think about for our work, for our family. Have to submit your tax return, look after your car, your house. The boiler breaks down. You need to fix it. And then these are just the things we have to do. And then there's also TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all these other distractions that's extra. So our prayer or our inspiration or aspiration through our life should be that, okay, I need to think about so many other things, but Krishna should always be there. Because at the end of life, there is a very famous verse in Bhagavad Gita, I don't know if anyone knows, the Sanskrit starts with. And there's not, that's perfect, but there's also another one that says, whatever you remember. Can you say the whole? Anyway, the first.
Too much pressure.
Sorry.
I do know it.
Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajyachante kalevaram tam tam evaitikante asadatat bhava bhavista. So whatever you remember at the time of death, that you will attain without fail. So if you think about butterflies, even though butterflies are really beautiful, you might become a butterfly in your next life, and is it really what you want? And then when I say butterfly, everybody can substitute. You know, we all know our own minds. There is no need to kind of say anything more. So we can think about, okay, whatever I spend my life thinking about, that's what I will think about at death, and that determines my next body. When you wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth and you look in the mirror, that was your mind from your last life. That's how you got this body. So whatever thoughts you have now, that will determine your next body. So this is, you could say, the lesson from this first verse. We have to think about so many different things, but try to have Krishna there always. And as time goes on, some of us are not 16 anymore. As time goes on, we should try to focus more and more and more on Krishna. So when the time comes, we can think about it. Thank you. The translation: Shri Krishna is the intimate friend of Arjuna. He has appeared on this earth in this transcendental body, which resembles the bluish color of the tamal tree. His body attracts everyone in the 3 planetary systems, upper, middle, and lower. May his glittering yellow dress and his lotus face, covered with paintings of sandalwood pulp, be the object of my attraction, and may I not desire fruitive results. So this is the form that Bishmadev likes to see. In fact, he will kind of mention more and more about this form, but here he just says, glittering yellow dress, lotus face, covered with paintings of sandalwood pulp. So you can see Gornitai here, also in their glittering yellow dress, and beautiful necklaces and earrings and flowers. Somebody dressed them really, really nicely. So Bishmadev has a favorite form. I'm sure we also all have 1 or 2 or 5 favorite forms of Krishna, deities or paintings. So just like we said for the previous verse, we need to try to somehow remember Krishna. Seeing the deities or seeing the pictures is a really good way, because it focuses our attention, focuses our mind. So if you are fortunate enough to go to the temple and see Radha Madhava in the morning, then try to make a point of remembering, okay, what color was their outfit, what were their necklaces and bracelets and rings like. And then as you go about your life, so many other things we have to think about. Every so often you can think about how many rings did Madhava wear, and how many necklaces, and which way did the necklaces or the garland was flowing. So it's a nice meditation. First it may seem a bit mechanical, but it forces our mind to think about Krishna. And then Krishna starts reciprocating, and rather than just us having to force our mind, slowly, slowly he will start appearing in our minds. So the meditation becomes more and more natural.
Yugi
Thank you. So translation, on the battlefield where Sri Krishna attended Arjuna out of friendship, the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hoofs of the horses. And because of his labor, beads of sweat wetted his face. All these decorations, intensified by the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows, were enjoyed by him. Let my mind thus go unto Sri Krishna. So again, this is how Bhishma likes to see Krishna, that he's sweaty and he's full of wounds. So in an angry, chivalrous, like warrior form. So we like to see Gornitai, or Radha Madhava, Radha Gokulananda, whoever is your favorite form. Bhishmadev's favorite form is this Vijayasaka, friend of Arjuna, or Parthasarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. And like I mentioned before, there is no real enmity. So even though Bhishma is shooting arrows at Krishna and Arjuna, there is no real enmity. They're just having a good fight. So I don't know if any of you has ever done martial arts, judo or karate. Then to have a good fight, you need someone of a similar background. So if you have black belt and 5 done in karate, you're not going to have a good fight with somebody who just started or somebody who's just walking down the street. So in the same way, Krishna needs someone of a similar quality as himself to have a good fight. Of course, he sometimes fights with demons, but he could just do this, or wouldn't even have to do this to kill the demons. To actually have a good fight, you know, he needs his devotees. So that's why Bhishmadev has this mood of fighting Krishna, but only to please him. And also, like I mentioned before, we usually offer flowers and arati to please Krishna. We cook a big feast. We make a new outfit. So many different ways to worship Krishna. And Bhishma is offering arrows. So in one sense, it's a slightly different way of worshipping and offering, but the intention is the same. The intention is to please Krishna. You can have them. Translation, in obedience to the command of his friend, Lord Shri Krishna entered the arena of the battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjuna and Duryodhana, and while there he shortened the lifespans of the opposite party by his merciful glance. This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be fixed upon that Krishna. So still, Bhishma is praying to be fixed, his mind is fixed on Krishna. In the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks Krishna to do something. Anyone remembers what Arjuna asks Krishna to do? Yeah, so he says, Senayor Ubayor Madhye Ratam Stapayatam Echyuta. Please bring my chariot between the two armies so I can see who's here to fight. He already knows who's there to fight, but he just wants to see them. But it wasn't just Arjuna who saw the two sides. Krishna also saw them both. And in this verse it says that by glancing on them, he shortened their lives by his merciful glance. So by Krishna looking at all those 640 million people, he shortened their lives. And usually, shortening someone's life is not seen as being merciful. And then quite often, God gets accused of being partial. You know, why is he killing these demons? Why is he punishing them? And then he's even breaking his own vow to protect his devotee. It just seems a bit unfair and unjust. Should God not be just? But the interesting thing is that by shortening their lives by his merciful glance, he actually gave them liberation. So if these warriors just stayed at home, stayed in bed, died in bed, or even if they had just died in any other battlefield, they wouldn't have got liberation. But because Krishna glanced on them, then they all became liberated. So whatever Krishna does, whether good or bad, whether seemingly good or seemingly bad, he's absolute. So he's all good. Now this sounds great when I'm sitting here and saying this in class, but when it starts happening in our own lives, that's when it gets a bit harder to think about. Krishna is all good. He's actually benefiting me by giving me this illness. He's actually benefiting me by someone stealing my car. He's actually benefiting me by all the arguments that I somehow end up in the middle of. It takes quite a lot of maturity and detachment to be able to see Krishna's mercy or Krishna's kindness in these seemingly bad things. When good things happen, and we get 3 gulab jamuns instead of just 1 during the Sunday feast, that's very easy to see Krishna's kindness and Krishna's mercy. But when we've been standing in a queue for the last 40 minutes and the person in front of us gets the last gulab jamun and we don't have, then that's a lot harder to see it as Krishna's mercy. Again, I guess we can all kind of fill in the blanks and substitute gulab jamuns for anything else that goes on in our lives. But somehow or another, we need to see that maybe I'm not able to see it right now. Maybe it will take me a few weeks, few months, maybe even 5 or 10 years to be able to see how this particular situation helped me. Hopefully, if it's just gulab jamuns, we can get over the trauma in a few minutes, but we all have bigger things in life as well. So try to, first of all, not accuse Krishna when apparently bad things happen to us. Try to see it as Krishna's mercy, who is somehow trying to nudge me to go in the right direction. If nothing else, he's nudging me to only take shelter of him. We have so many friends, we have family, and then sometimes we feel that we are all alone in the world. It's a lot easier to take shelter of Krishna when we feel that we are all alone, than we feel that I can turn to my friends, I can turn to my family, and they will give me shelter. Now, I didn't say this that from tomorrow don't speak to your friends or, renounce your family, but just this understanding that we can only fully take shelter of Krishna when we feel that we have no other shelter. Okay? Translation: When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. So you can see in every prayer, Bishmadev is praying, please let me focus on you, let me become attracted to you, let me become attached to you. And this particular verse refers to the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance, after seeing the soldiers and commanders on the battlefield. So Krishna seemingly polluted Arjuna's intelligence. It seemed like that Arjuna's intelligence is polluted. Of course, Arjuna is always a pure devotee, but it seemed as if he became overwhelmed by ignorance. There are 2 verses in the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, right next to each other. And in one purport, Prabhupada says, Arjuna, just like a really attached materialist, an ignorant materialist, he was He didn't want to fight with his relatives. He didn't want to do his duty because he was so attached and so overcome by ignorance. In the next verse, Prabhupada says in the purport, Arjuna, being a soft-hearted devotee, didn't want to fight in the battle because he didn't want to kill his relatives just to get a kingdom. So we're thinking, okay, is he polluted by ignorance or is he a soft-hearted, elevated devotee? So they're both true. He's seemingly polluted and he's a soft-hearted, elevated devotee. So that's the kind of one of the secrets of Bhagavad Gita. And then sometimes when we go through difficulties, we can think, okay, this is my karma. No, that's why I'm stuck in a traffic jam and I missed a job interview that I really, really wanted to go for. But when other devotees go through difficulties, we shouldn't think of it, okay, it's their karma, they must have deserved it, they must have done something wrong. We can think about it in a way that Krishna is helping them learn something, or even we can think about it in an even better way, thinking Krishna is putting them through this so I can learn something. They are so elevated and so pure that from their response, from the way they deal with that situation, I can learn. So that's a nice way to, other than, of course, try to help devotees as much as we are able, but rather than thinking that it must be their karma, they must deserve it, this is a nice way to think about how when devotees go through difficulties. Another point relating to Bhagavad Gita is Bhagavad Gita is spoken on a battlefield, and people are just about to kill each other. So you could think the most transcendental, deepest knowledge of the spirit, shouldn't it be spoken in somewhere a bit more appropriate? Maybe in a nice forest clearing with the birds chirping and then some waterfalls and then sages, very peaceful and quiet and meditative. It would be so much easier to take it on board. But one of the reasons why Bhagavad Gita is spoken on a battlefield, because our life is also a battlefield. It may not be as extreme as what Arjuna had to go through, but I'm sure you all experience, hopefully not day by day, but regularly in life, that it feels like a battlefield. It feels like I'm struggling with so many challenges, I'm fighting with so many things. So if Arjuna could receive this knowledge and act upon this knowledge while he was in this most extreme situation of the battlefield, then that should give us some inspiration and reassurance that even in our own smaller battles in life, we should be able to take up the Bhagavad Gita's teachings. Prabhu? May He, Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield he charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. Oh, sorry, thank you. Fulfilling my vow and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. So it's a really nice picture of Bishmadev standing on the chariot, saying, "Come, kill me." And Krishna is running towards him with a chariot wheel in his hand. And Arjuna is trying to hold him back, holding onto his legs. So there's so much in that one picture. I'm sure there could be a week-long series of classes given on that. But one of the most important points is that Krishna, fulfilling my vow, meaning fulfilling Bhishma's vow, and sacrificing his own promise. So Krishna loves his devotees so much that he is prepared to sacrifice his own promise, sacrifice his own prestige and his own fame in the world to fulfill the vow of Bhishma. When in the Bhagavad Gita later on, it happened before this scene, but in the Bhagavad Gita towards the end, Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna, you should declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. So we could think, okay, why is it not that Krishna says, my devotee never perishes? And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, because Krishna may give a promise, but then he may or may not keep it. You know, we know these people in Vrindavan, Mathura, you know, they promise things all the time. And who knows whether they keep it or not. So that's why Krishna feels it's really important that people believe him, because he really means this. That's why he's telling Arjuna, you should say this, because people will believe you. You always keep your promise. So that's why Arjuna says, he's telling Arjuna, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. So protecting his devotees, looking after his devotees, reciprocating with his devotees is so important to Krishna. And he says here, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant, Krishna was running towards Bhishma, and he even dropped his outer garment on the way. So he didn't think about how he looks, he didn't think about anything, all he thought about, I need to protect my devotee. And of course he also thought about, I need to protect my other devotees' vow. So Bhaktavatsala, being a friend of his devotee, a protector of his devotee, is more important to Krishna than keeping his vow, being a worldly moralist. And then Bhishma also starts glorifying the love Arjuna feels, okay, so the love between Arjuna and Krishna. So we said that when you think about Krishna, when you address Krishna, when you pray to Krishna, it's always nice to use names that relate to one of his devotees. So when we say Nanda Nandana, Yashoda Dulal, Vijaya Sakhi, Partha Sarati, Gopi Janavalabha, we're not just talking about Krishna, but we are talking about Krishna's relationship with these devotees. And then as soon as Krishna hears it, he also remembers these devotees, so it melts his heart. He's much more likely to hear our prayer. So it's Bishmadev is also remembering Krishna as the friend of Arjuna, Vijayasaka, Partha Sarati as the chariot driver of Arjuna. So as well as remembering to address Krishna with names of his devotees, as well as names of his devotees, we can also take from Bhishma how he's so excited and inspired by how another devotee receives reciprocation from Krishna. So rather than just always thinking about our own relationship with Krishna, our own service, we can also be really excited about other devotees' services or other devotees' relationship with Krishna. I'm not going to say any names because I don't want to embarrass anyone, but I moved here about a year and a half ago, and I'm still amazed by this congregation, by this community, where 99.9% of the devotees are working, they have families, and somehow they still manage to still maintain worship of Radha Madhava, have really ecstatic harinams, programs, so many different things you do, and everybody just does it as an extra on top of their, what you do anyway, to look after your family, see your job. So we can get so much inspiration from other devotees' services. And then we can just look at Gornitai, how nicely they are dressed, or Radha Madhava, how nicely they are dressed. So we can get excited and inspired by the services of other devotees, a relationship, seeing other devotees advance. It's also really exciting to see.
Prasabhama
May He, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield He charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. Prabhu, what time does it finish? So this is more of how Bhishma likes to see Krishna. So he's got wounds, he's smeared with blood. So previously he was just dusty and sweaty. Now he's also smeared with blood. So it's a really, you could say, heavy sight, heavy scene. But this is how Bhishma likes to see Krishna. And he really you can see for a few verses now, he's really focusing on this vision of Krishna holding this chariot wheel and running towards him, basically to kill him. So as a warrior, this is the vision Bishmadev wants to see. But let's not forget that if there was real enmity, either from Krishna's side or from Bishmadev's side, then Bishmadev wouldn't be lying on his deathbed praying, please come before me, please let me think about you, please let me become attracted to you, please let my mind be fixed on you. And then Krishna also wouldn't be there to listen to his prayer. So we might, for us, I don't know, there might be some devotees in a chivalrous mood who get really excited by this vision. I'm sure there are some. But for us it may be a particular form of Krishna, a particular picture of Krishna, a particular deity of Krishna that we feel so much reciprocation, and seeing that form, seeing that pastime, seeing pictures of that pastime makes us be able makes us more absorbed in Krishna. I just read the next translation. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope on his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. So maybe we can, I just read the translation, but if you can play the verses. So this is again remembering Krishna in this warrior form, the chariot driver of Arjuna, whip in his hand, and is really focusing on protecting Arjuna. So Krishna is really focusing on protecting Arjuna's chariot. And those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. So everybody, whichever side they fought on, they attained liberation. Now Bhishma, he's a very special personality. He's partially an eternal associate of Krishna, who wherever Krishna goes to do his pastimes, he goes with Krishna. So whichever universe Krishna is doing his pastimes, Bhishma is also there. But partially he's also one of the Vasus called Dew. There is a story how he was cursed to take birth on earth and become... anyway, that's how he became Bishmadev. So Bhishma knows, he's lying on his deathbed, he knows that Krishna is soon going to wind up his pastimes, he's soon going to leave this universe. So Bhishma has the benediction that he can leave his body whenever he wants to. So if we had that benediction, maybe we would, okay, why not just carry on living, could see Yudhishthir on the throne, so many other things. And anyway, most people don't want to die. But Bhishma knows that Krishna is soon going to leave this universe and he's going to do his pastimes in the next universe. So when I leave this body, I just continue my pastimes with Krishna in the next universe. So that's his meditation, as he's fixed on Krishna. Liberation for him is not some merging into the existence or the effulgence of the Lord, but he's attaining his original form, which he already has, just in the next place, serving Krishna as Bishmadev. So that's his perfection, that's his satisfaction, just going from one universe to the next, one universe to the next, fighting Krishna. Prabhupada sometimes says that it's like there's a clock there, and you can see the big hand moving from 1 to 2, 2 to 3. So just like that, Krishna is also moving from one universe to second universe, third universe, and his eternal associates go with him. So next time you look at a clock, you can think about Krishna's pastimes. He's moving his pastimes to different universes. This is a very interesting verse. Bishmadev says, "Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Shri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Rajadam, the gopis. The damsels imitated characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the Rasadans." So I'm sure many of you noticed the big change in mood. It's been blood and wounds and arrows and fighting. And now suddenly it's the gopis and smiles and flowers and rasadans. So for Bhishma, still, his favorite form is Vijayasaka and the fighting form, but he also appreciates that the highest devotees are the gopis. So again, this is something that we can take in our own lives, that we may have a favorite service, we may have a favorite form of Krishna, a favorite pastime of Krishna, but we can also appreciate other devotees' services. So our service may be cooking for Radha Madhava or dressing Radha Madhava, and that's really, really fortunate to be able to do that service. But if somebody prefers to go on Harinam or do preaching programs or do some cleaning, so we should appreciate each other's services, because through that service we develop our relationship with Krishna, whether it's dressing the deities or cleaning up after the Sunday feast. It's our relationship with Krishna. Some of the devotees don't come to the Sunday program because they're doing the service at the temple, or they don't come for the kirtan or class because they're doing a program for the children, so they are also excited and want to come for the program. So all these services are really, really nice and should be appreciated. They are all there to please Krishna and help others to come closer to Krishna. Okay, I read it before Prabhu played but I read it again. Sorry. Oh no, that was a different one. So this translation: "Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Shri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Rajadam, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the Rasadans." It's really nice. There's a lot more in it. But at the Rajasuya Yagya, sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthir, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and learned orders, and in that great assembly, Lord Shri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remember the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. So this is something we can do in our own life. I'm sure you've all been to really ecstatic kirtans when you feel that this is perfection. Or maybe you visited Vrindavan or Mayapur and you've been to a holy place and you felt a really strong connection with Krishna. So try to keep those things in mind, try to remember them. Not just in times of difficulty, but we can practice this regularly to kind of, there's the saying you could say in the material world, to go to my happy place. Sometimes when we get upset, then we think about some mountain or waterfall or my greenhouse or somewhere where I feel happy. But our happy place can be that kirtan or that holy place in Vrindavan or Mayapur, or just some time when we felt really close to Krishna. So this is something we can practice in our life, and hopefully at the time of death it will make it easier to, again, remember this pastime or remember Krishna. This is the last prayer. Now I can meditate with full concentration upon that one Lord, Shri Krishna, now present before me, because now I have transcended the misconceptions of duality in regard to his presence in everyone's heart, even in the hearts of the mental speculators. He is in everyone's heart. The sun may be perceived differently, but the sun is one. So this is the last prayer of Bishmadev, and he wants to be completely focused. He says, meditate with full concentration upon that one Lord, Shri Krishna. So different people perceive Krishna in different ways. Some people see him as Krishna, some people see him as an all-pervading energy that's in nature, some people see him as the Lord in the heart, and then even people see him as Krishna, some people see him as Krishna in Vrindavan, or Krishna in Mathura, Krishna in Dwaraka. Some people prefer to see him as Lord Chaitanya, but Krishna is one. The example Bishmadev gives, the sun may be perceived differently, but the sun is one. So here it's 5:20. In America it's about midday. In India people are already going to sleep, there is no sun at all. It's the same sun, but it's in different places in different countries. Here the sun may not be visible because of the clouds. Somewhere else it's really, really hot. And then somewhere, on the North Pole, they don't see the sun at all for 6 months. And then they see it all the time for the other 6 months. But the sun is still the one sun, no matter how people see it or don't see it. So in the same way, Krishna is one. People see him differently, and it's not necessarily bad. It's not that we have to force everyone to see Krishna in the exact same way as I see him. That relationship is for us to cherish, and not to kind of necessarily impose it on others. But the meditation or the lesson we can take from all these prayers, like I said in the beginning, this was a little glance, a little window into the mind of Bishmadev, mind of a great devotee. The lesson we can take is, the prayer is always praying, let my mind go to him, let my mind be focused on him, let my mind become attached and attracted to him. So this is a nice meditation, nice way to finish, and hopefully for the rest of Sunday, maybe next week, hopefully for the rest of our lives, we can keep thinking about and praying to Krishna, let my mind go to you, let my mind be attached to you, let my mind become attracted to you. So Hare Krishna, thank you for your kind attention. Is it prasadam?